Welcome to Daily Scary Tales, where nightmares come to life. Hit subscribe and share the horror with your friends, if they're brave enough. Today's chilling tale is all about the cursed mystery of the shadow in the lantern room. You won't look at lighthouses the same way again. Are you ready to dive in? Brace yourself. This story might show you that some lights should never be lit. Situated on the jagged cliffs of Cape Mistral, the old lighthouse had stood guard over the treacherous shorelines for nearly 150 years. Weathered by storms that swept viciously over its structure, the townsfolk often spoke about how its light had saved countless lives. But in hushed tones, they whispered of the lantern room, the very soul of the lighthouse, as a place no one dared to enter unless absolutely necessary. They said it held a presence, a shadow, far darker than the void of the ocean it overlooked. It was Callum, a young history teacher with a penchant for uncovering forgotten tales, who decided to uncover the forgotten lore surrounding the lighthouse. Ignoring the warnings of the locals, as curious academics do, he obtained special permission to investigate. Callum had no immediate fear. Surely, he thought, the stories were local myths blown out of proportion by sea lore. On his first visit, he noticed the eeriness of the lighthouse immediately. The towering cylindrical structure loomed against the gray skies, its windows frosted with salt and time. But what caught his attention almost instantly was the light, or rather, its absence. That lighthouse had ceased operations over 60 years ago, yet locals insisted they had seen an inexplicable beam slicing through foggy nights like some restless ghost tirelessly performing its duty. Callum spent the day combing through records in the lighthouse's keeper's quarters. Old logbooks spoke about a certain tragedy in the 1890s. A keeper named Ezra Grayson had mysteriously vanished one fateful evening. The town searched relentlessly, but neither Ezra nor his body was ever found. What puzzled Callum further was that the logbook stopped abruptly. It seemed as though Ezra was mid-thought when he had simply left or disappeared. Then, night began to settle. Determined to uncover this mystery, Callum ascended the winding staircase that creaked under his every step. Every sound, his breath, the grating of his shoe soles, seemed to echo endlessly within the stone walls. Upon reaching the lantern room, his first impression was unease. He had the inexplicable sensation that the room was breathing, alive, its air so thick with stillness that even sound seemed muffled. The giant Fresnel lens in the center of the room arched like a crystalline beast above him. But something wasn't quite right, for within its sparkling reflections danced a shadow. He assumed it was his own, but quickly realized the movements didn't align. He stood still, yet the shadow shifted, its elongated form contorting unnaturally. Callum took a cautious step forward, his flashlight illuminating the frosted glass panes. He heard a noise then, a faint whisper echoing like wind slipping through cracks, though oddly, there were none wide enough. The whispers grew stronger, almost forming words. Callum swore he heard, "Turn it back on." Mustering courage, he touched a switch panel installed decades ago. Nothing happened. Just as he bent down to inspect the wiring, there was a flash. A light seared through the darkness so abruptly that he stumbled back. The lantern had lit itself. In the beam's ghostly glow, the shadow loomed larger. What had once been a vaguely human figure within the lantern's reflection now became distinctly corporeal. It stretched from wall to wall, trapped but restless, its void-like form nearly suffocating the light itself. And then, for just a second, Callum saw a face. It wasn't distinct as much as it was there. Angular, pale, with eyes that glinted too brightly. The shape turned its gaze directly toward him. "Free me," the voice snarled, a guttural cry laced with both despair and command. Callum panicked. He stumbled blindly down the stairs as the room oscillated between light and dark. The spiraling shadows seemed to chase him, gripping the walls like desperate hands clawing for escape. The townsfolk discovered him the next morning, slumped against the lighthouse's base, visibly shaken, his flashlight still clutched in a white-knuckled grip. He muttered incoherently about a shadow, a curse, but most haunting of all, about Ezra Grayson, a man long presumed dead. You see, Ezra never left the lighthouse because he couldn't. His spirit had become tethered to the Fresnel lens, a prisoner of a duty he could no longer perform, but a beacon he could never leave. The very light he once carried to save others had turned into his own spectral prison. The lighthouse still stands on Cape Mistral. Occasional reports of its eerie light shining faintly through the mist continue to circulate, but no one dares to go near it. Not anymore. For just as Callum was warned, the lantern room is better left undisturbed. Some shadows are meant to stay in the dark. Thank you for tuning in to Daily Scary Tales. Remember to subscribe and share this story with someone who'd dare enter the lantern room themselves. Or maybe someone you'd want to see tested against the shadow. Sweet dreams, if you can. Until next time.